Hi, everyone. Welcome to Breaking the Silence podcast, produced by Angels Protection, Inc., where we uplift the voices of young women and mothers and the advocates, healers, creators, and leaders shaping the systems that impact their lives. I'm your host, Makaila Davis, founder and chairwoman of Angels Protection, Inc., and our Women's Leader series here on She Educates, okay? We are highlighting powerhouse women with lived experience in servant leadership, strategic brilliance, and opening doors, shifting cultures, and transforming communities. And these are women who are not only building solutions, but they're building futures in higher education. Today's featured guest is a woman whose leadership spans global education, DEI innovation, academic excellence, and systematic change making in higher education. Dr. Angelita P. Howard is an educational pioneer, teacher, mentor, scholar, singer, and servant leader whose career has transformed the landscape of educational access for underrepresented students across the nation. She currently serves as Vice President for the Global Education and Student Success at Meharry Medical College, where she leads strategic initiatives designed to expand access, strengthen student outcomes, and shape global educational pathways for the next generation of diverse health equity leaders. Dr. Howard is also the founder and CEO of Improving Access Incorporated, an organization dedicated to dismantling barriers in education and creating more equitable and inclusive learning environments for underserved communities. A passionate champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion, Dr. Howard has been a national voice on educational equity for decades. She's also an author of Authentic Leadership Navigating Success One Chapter at a Time, a groundbreaking book that reflects her commitment to leadership rooted in integrity, service, and personal growth. So she is doing amazing work in the field. She's a true pioneer in online education. She's also been recognized globally for advancing digital learning, has been invited to speak at conferences across the world. Her published work spans diversity, health equity, educational innovation, and leadership development. Her excellence has been widely celebrated. She's a recipient of the Woman of the Year in STEM Education Award, FECDC Pinnacle Leadership Award, Georgia Bio Community Award, and across every role, every platform, and every initiative, Dr. Howard leads with a deep commitment to expanding educational pipelines, empowering underrepresented learners, and transforming institutions from the inside out. Whether she's building global programs, championing equity, or uplifting future leaders, Dr. Howard brings vision, compassion, and impact to every space that she enters. So I just really want to just say I want to give you just a wonderful welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure who exactly you were talking about, but you're gonna have to come and be my introducer. You did such a great job. I'm like, who is this woman? But thank you so much, and thank you for having me, Makaila. It is a pleasure, privilege, and honor to serve and be with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. So I just kind of want to kick it off and say, so Dr. Howard, to begin, what first inspired your passion for education, leadership, and service?
So I will tell you all that I was an undergrad major in music. My passion for music, I love music. I was going to be this great big opera singer. That was in my head. I was going to the Met, I was going to London, I was doing all of that until my first audition after I came out of undergraduate school. I had graduated that summer. I'll never forget. And I did my first big major audition, um, and with the symphony. And I remember going to that audition. I was prepared. I remember I sang Summertime, and I mean, I was just floating in the air, and I thought it was amazing. It was wonderful. I left out of there feeling like a champion, only to get an email within the next 24 hours, maybe even a phone call then, to tell me that they did not select me for the role. But they told me, we have a place for you in the choir. Well, I just graduated with the undergrad degree. I had my bachelor's in music, and you're going to tell me that I'm going to sing to the choir. You're going to diminish me. That's what I thought as a 21-year-old, to the choir, not knowing that the choir was a very special place. It was the starting place. It was a place that some wanted to be because they didn't want to be on the stage. They wanted to be in the background doing the work and heavy lifting. And so from that moment, what it has taught me was two things. My mentor recently had passed away, so I didn't really have anybody to tell me at that point. My musical mentor to tell me, this is where you start. This is how you grow. This is how you build. And so that first real big feeling of rejection or no, which really wasn't rejection when I looked at it years later. It really sparked my interest to make sure people were prepared, make sure people understood that, you know, a no is not a bad thing. It's redirection. It's not rejection of you. It's just rejection of the particular phase or stage in life. And so as I began to teach, I went into teaching shortly thereafter. I wanted to make sure that people felt and understood what it meant to push forward, push past the nose, push past what things that they thought were barriers or obstacles to face for them to get to the next level. So I would say that every part of my journey since then has been, whether it's been intentional or not, in some thoughts, it has been to make sure people had access to education. They had access to things that they would have originally thought, oh, maybe I don't have access or I can't do it. There are things that they can do, that would make a world a better place. So it may not have been what they were striving for. It might be something a little bit different, but they can still have an impact on community.
No, I love that. And I wanted to kind of like touch on too how you said like sometimes you have to pivot
Mm-hmm.
because you get a no. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Especially like even when you were saying like okay, you got your degree in music and you're like wow, like I thought this was what was it. Um
Mm-hmm.
and to just see how that just made you just evolve and transform to where you are now.
Yes.
Just like a
Yes.
beautiful to see how that
Yes.
went on your path.
Yes.
Um So, like, also too, you've been a pioneer in online education.
Mhm.
So, how did you recognize its potential early on, and what do institutions still misunderstand about digital learning?
So I had done traditional degrees. I went and I did a non-traditional degree. And I say non-traditional because at the time, early in 2000, well, 2007, I believe it was my first time doing an online degree. It was a Master of Arts in Teaching. Now, I had already had a master's, but I went back, and the degree then was completely online. This school was one of the first to kind of really break those barriers of saying, okay, we can fully do education online. And at the same time, I was transitioning into a role, my first, I would say, real big leadership role where I was tasked to do online education. I had seen it as a student and knew that it could work. But then my colleagues, because at that time I was teaching, I was working at a Christian institute where the main focus was biblical education. So you can imagine there were so many people. You can't teach Bible online. You can't teach theology online. I laugh now at some of my colleagues who I still keep in touch with years later because after when the pandemic came, I'm like, well, what are y'all doing? Y'all are having church online. You're doing everything online. So things and the tides have shifted. But my experience as a non-traditional student in that program really helped to shape my thinking around digital education and learning. And that people, no matter if you have children, schedules, a full-time job, you should not have access to education because you have a family, because you decided or life decided that you needed to get your education later on in life. Everyone doesn't have the pathway to go from high school to 4 years of college, then to a master's degree or doctoral degree. That's not the pathway for everyone. And it's okay. It is perfectly fine that that's not the pathway. There are not timelines that people, there's this societal thinking that you should have this timeline of when you do A, B, C, and D. It doesn't always work that way. And because it doesn't always work that way, having those options through digital education of going to online programs and online schools is really good. And so there are many misnomers, there are many sayings, or for years people have combated, oh, it's online, you're just going to get a degree. Nobody's really paying attention. But I beg to differ, because one of the things that has to happen in online, even for accreditors, they're looking for learning outcomes. They're looking at how you're measuring these learning outcomes. They're looking at the rigor. They're looking at comparative data as it relates to what happens in the traditional classroom, especially if it's the same degree as what happens online. You have to calculate hours. There's so much more sometimes that faculty would rather teach on in class than they would online, because of the lens and the careful eye that people, accreditation systems, and schools overall look into online education. No one, and I will say this as the younger people say, 10 toes down, no one will tell us or tell me that any degree that I've had the pleasure of starting, overseeing, that it does not have quality control, rigor, and it does not have a level where people know, and we know, and we're putting in the work to make sure that students are trained, they're educated, and when they leave the program, they leave better than what they started. That is my commitment to excellence. That's my commitment to authenticity, but also my commitment to how we level up in education, how we make sure that we are given equitable access to impact and influence this next generation.
No, definitely. And I think it's important as we're like progressing, like you said, with during COVID, we learned a lot during that time.
Yeah,
And that online education is the future. And it just gives access to everyone across the border. I mean, if the school's located in Texas and you live in Pennsylvania, you can still attend.
sure.
And then you get to meet like so many different classmates that are from all over. So
Yeah.
it really does create so many different opportunities.
And it builds the network. It builds your network. It builds the space and how we reach. My, as you well know, the work that I do is around health equity or equity, and so that spans. And we have to teach and send people out to make sure that it is happening across the U.S., across the globe, globally. So we can't just do it in one state and expect for it to make an impact globally. We have to teach to the nations. We have to teach outside of our space, and online education allows for us to do that.
It definitely does. And that kind of like ties into like my next question. So you authored transformative work on authentic leadership. So what does that authentically mean in today's educational landscape? And what, to me, I would say is essential for leaders to know?
So it is, that book came out of joy. It came out of pain. It came out of change. And it came out of wanting to see people win, wanting to seek a pathway or set a pathway for people, no matter which area they're in, no matter how big or how small they start, that there is a pathway to growth. There's a pathway of pushing. And I really took my work in doing this, took my work in online education and programs and growing and showing where, there were obstacles throughout. There were people, naysayers, that said, no, you shouldn't do this. No, we can't do this. No, we shouldn't have online education in these spaces because it doesn't, this is not what we traditionally do. But then we saw growth, we saw change. And so the authentic leader is the leader that understands there are going to be shifts, there are going to be changes, and then how they welcome those changes, how they welcome those shifts, how they make sure that the people around them and the people that they serve, not people that serve them, but the people that they serve as leaders, we should serve. that we are helping them, we are motivating, we're coaching, we are being authentic and understanding that sometimes we win. Sometimes we win big, sometimes we don't. Sometimes a project doesn't do so well, and we have to start from scratch, or we have to say, you know what, this is not the time. It's okay. We need to do something different. We have to pivot. Understanding all of those things, that we are not in a perfect world, we're not in a perfect um environment, but what we do is strive towards perfection. And how do we do that alone? We can't do it by ourselves, but we have to be authentic in what we do. We have to be transparent. We have to be honest. We have to make sure that we are creating opportunities for those who come behind us, that they have a place to go and to carry our work, and that we can't be afraid of rejection. We can't be afraid of being told no. We can't be afraid if something doesn't work, if something doesn't go the way that we thought. We don't just get to give up. We don't get to throw in the towel. We keep going. We keep transforming. We keep innovating. We keep pushing past, but thinking as we're doing all of that, we're not doing it by ourselves. We're championing, we're motivating, we're coaching, and we are being coached. We are being motivated. We are being, so everything that we're pouring out, we're also seeking to be poured into as authentic. Sometimes people think, oh, well, leadership, it is lonely at the top. That's been the whole, that the mantra, it's lonely at the top. It doesn't have to be as lonely as we make it. There are so many things that are lonely, yes, and there are so many decisions that have to be made. But we also, and this is one of the things that why I appreciate even in the School of Global Health, where we are at Meharry, is that we have a motto, we, not me, because we have to hold each other up, because it is a lot. And so we practice holding each other up, so that no, anytime anyone feels like they're falling, they can take a break for a minute, because we have someone holding each other up.
No, definitely. And I think that's really important. Like as we're talking about, like you said, authentic leadership. And that it is lonely at the top when you're in any leadership role.
Yeah.
Whether you're leading it yourself or you're co-chairing. But it's important to make sure that you're building your community
Yes.
at the same time. Uh,
Yes.
so also too, you've spent years advocating for DEI at a national level. How have you seen the field evolve, and where does meaningful DEI work still need to grow?
This is such a hard thing to say, as we've seen so many changes that have happened in our administration. We've seen changes in financial aid. We've seen changes in job structure. We've seen changes in educational structure as it relates to professional programs. We've seen anticipated changes in DEI. We've seen changes in where money is funded because of this. A lot has changed, and a lot will continue to change. And so we for me, there's some evolving that we have to do. Because we do understand in times like we're currently facing, that we have to prepare our students, we have to prepare our leaders, we have to prepare those who are again coming behind us, that we still have to champion equity. We still have to champion diversity. We still have to champion inclusive. How that looks, it might be a little bit different now. It might have to be a little bit different. And so it doesn't mean that we don't stop the work. It doesn't mean that we just, again, give up and say we're not going to do this work anymore. We are full force. We are full ahead. We do understand there are some changes that have to be made for the sake of funding, or for the sake of making sure that we are in line with accreditation standards, or whatever those standards are, so that we don't lose certain benefits. But just because you change labels, or you change titles, does not mean that you have to change the work. I can still advocate for people who are black and brown or who are minorities to have rights, to have availability, to have access, to make sure that old adage, I don't, years ago, people who grew up back in early 1900s, my grandmother would say, people can't take what's up here in your mind. They can take jobs, they can take materials, but they can't take what's up in your mind. So it's up to us. It's up to us as leaders. It's up to us as people who believe and know that DEI still exists, that we teach it. We still advocate for people to have health care. We still advocate for access to education. So how do we do that? We have to raise money. We have to create opportunities within our curriculum that we engage people. We have a program at Meharry. We have it because our mission is based on underserved in our School of Global Health. That is a PhD in global health equity. We are still advocating, we are still teaching, we are still, again, we know there are some ways that we have to change the face, but we don't necessarily have to change the ingredient. You can call a pound cake lemon pound cake, or it could be a chocolate pound cake. Okay, you can take the lemon and say we're not going to call it lemon pound cake anymore, but the ingredients are still going to be the same. It may just be a pound cake. It may not be lemon pound cake, but if you like pound cake and you prefer it with the little lemony taste, then we're gonna still make it. But it's how we package it. It sometimes has to be a little bit different. That's tough. It's hard. It is a heavy weight. It's been heavy. It's now more so even heavier. But we don't give up because things get hard and heavy. We adjust. We adjust our bootstraps and we find other pathways, other avenues to make sure that we're still in the fight. We link up. This goes back to my saying earlier about how we hold each other up. So while we may can't be in the front of the battle, we link up with others who can be in the front of the battle, and we make sure that we're supporting and we're pushing where we can, and so that we continue the work that we're doing in the DEI space. It is hard. It is different. It's difficult. It hurts. All of those things. Several people have renamed their offices. They don't call them DEI offices. They call them cultural or cultural perspective, global. I remember I teach for an institution. I teach a class, and the class previously was named. It was called diversity, equity, inclusion. Now it's called global perspectives. Okay. The content is the same. It's a different name. So it's challenging times, but we don't stop the work. And I'm not stopping the work. When
Right.
I post, when I'm on social media, when I'm out, I'm not stopping the work. I am still providing equity, access, and impact to those who want to hear it, to see it, to listen, and to live it so that others, people like that can't talk for themselves, that can't advocate for themselves, that we're still doing it. That's the work, and we're not stopping.
No, and I think that's like so critical right
Yeah.
now is that um the ingredients are still the same.
Yeah.
That does not change.
Yeah.
And it's sad, like, because, when you're an institution, you're a business, you have to stay in compliance, like you said, so you can keep your funding and keep your projects going, but still doing the work. The work does not
Absolutely.
stop. We still continue to do the work because the work is the right thing to do.
Hmm.
Make sure folks that come from underserved communities and don't have access to certain resources still get those resources. And education is access.
It
So
is access. And so we have to be smart. We can't just, some people will say, I'm not, if it's not this way, I'm not doing it. We don't have the resources to be ignorant of the fact to say that, oh, we're just going to stop this because we don't want the government's money. That's not, because guess what? That's also taking away access and educational rights. That's also taking away from people. So we don't afford, and it doesn't matter your institution, because every institution is feeling it. And if you don't want to feel it to the highest level, then you do have to be humble. You have to humble yourself. There's a way to fight everything, anything. Sometimes it's slow, a lot of times it's controlled. And you have to figure out that pathway. You don't win a bee fight with, bringing extra bees. You're not going to win. You have to bring honey. So you have to soften up, understand, learn, read, and we've had to do a lot of changes. We've had to do a lot of changes, but we're still committed to making sure people have equitable care and access.
No, definitely. And I think like also too, I guess like also in your opinion, how do you think that systematic barriers from financial inequity and racial exclusion impact student success among Black and Brown students pursuing health professions?
So, I tell you, many institutions, educational institutions, especially when we talk about medicine, when we talk about those STEM programs, they're expensive. There are four Black medical colleges. They are expensive. It costs money. And so when you have the barrier of cost on top of trying to, in many of these instances, you're not able to work because depending on the program, that's another barrier. And then depending on, your family needs or what's happening there, that could be an additional barrier. Then now you have an administration who has suggested that the financial aid cost is going to drop to a certain amount. So let's just say if tuition for a program is 350,000 in medicine, but a student is only getting 200, that's $175,000 deficit. Unless the institution raises that times however many students, then that's going to be a problem. It's not going to be a problem. It is a problem. And so what we have to do, in schools, we have to rely upon people who are millionaires, who are billionaires of the world, to be more strategic in how they help to fund, help to resource our institutions, how to close some of those gaps. Because unfortunately, in educations where in institutions where you see equity and underserved populations being the core of their work, of the mission, there's going to be a bigger financial gap. In some of your other schools, you have endowments, billion-dollar endowments. So the problems aren't the same. The issues aren't the same. The access, it's not the same. So we are working to identify additional grants, additional partners, additional foundations who will work with us at all levels, because just not, not just medical programs, not dentistry programs, but you have public health. You have health administration. We are launching a Doctor of Health Administration program in the fall of 2026. We have all of these programs that can potentially suffer if we don't have foundations, we don't have other endowments or people that are coming in to close those gaps, to narrow those gaps. So what does that do? Why do I say that? What does that do? Well, that impacts the population of people, healthy people. Because if we don't have more people of certain backgrounds that are treating people, the same people in that category of that background, what happens to them? The health outcomes, I can assure you, are not going to be the same. This is why we have such a big pipeline that we start early in elementary, middle school, talking to helping students understand what STEM is, why it's important to go into that area, why we're trying to push more uh, underserved, underrepresented populations into that background because we want to make sure that by the time they get to college, be it undergrad, graduate, that we're pushing them into the area so that when they are serving populations, and I'm not just talking about physician assistants or nurse practitioners or medical doctors, I'm talking about even research when we're looking at the medicine, the drugs. When people are formulating drugs, when we're looking at clinical trials, if we're not having solid representation, what happens? Then you're getting the same drug as somebody else whose genes don't even touch or match yours. And then so long-term impacts of that. We are seeing now the impacts, we're really seeing impacts of what took place during COVID time, during while people were suffering with COVID. We're now seeing more and more of the impacts. And if we don't have proper representation, then people will pass it off as, oh, it's just, that didn't come from that. That didn't come from COVID. COVID was fake. You'll hear people beginning to think that, and then we will start to create this whole cycle or generation of people who don't really focus on equity and access because we're losing it from a financial standpoint. Um, because we know that it takes much more money for someone to go to an HBCU medical school or certain private schools than it does maybe state schools where there or Ivy League schools where the endowment is quadruple or like I said, millions to billions of dollars.
No, definitely. And I think it's funding is a major gap, like you touched on with a lot of these clinical healthcare programs, like
Yeah.
medical school, nursing school, dental
Mhm.
school. Um, and if you're not getting much financial aid, and then you have to take out a private loan, which there is no loan repayment on that.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of barriers. And then it's scarce of trying to find fellowships and scholarships and other little sources of funding to make up for that. And then you'll still be in a major gap.
And credit. I mean, if you're taking out private loans,
Mhm.
then if your credit is tied up into maybe your children or your house or things of that nature, something may have happened along the way with your credit and you had troubles like many Americans do. And no one should be shamed because they've had troubles, lost a job, bills got behind, credit went down. Then guess what? That's another barrier because private loans are, you're going to have a credit check.
Mhm. And then you might not qualify.
You may not qualify.
Yeah, so then that's it. And you thought, oh, well, I could get this, $100,000 loan, but you
Exactly.
can't. And then also to touch on, that's kind of predatory to
It
take
is. It is. It
to
is.
take out a loan for $100,000 for a piece of paper. Not saying
It
that
is.
piece of paper is not valuable, um, but then that's a whole nother conversation.
Oh, it is. It is. Oh gosh, yeah. We would be on here another
Yeah.
hour.
But it's just so critical and that people understand the gap in funding.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm. Yeah.
so also too, what role does community culture and mentorship play in shaping the next generation of scholars and leaders?
Mentorship is so important. I started the conversation off saying that had my mentor been alive or had I had a mentor at that time, my pathway or my decision would have been a little bit different as it relates to me singing and the work that I've done. And so, community champion through mentorship is so important. I don't care what stage, what age, where you are in life, you absolutely need mentorship. You need someone, and in my book, I talk about mentorship. I talk about champion and what those, in cheerleading, what those mean. They mean different things. I might meet with a mentor or someone who I've known as a mentor. We may meet 2 or 3 times a year, depending on what's going on. But I may have a champion for a season, that I'm trying to champion, let's say a project. It might be someone at work who you may have that is in a leadership role or in a position that can help champion your ideas, champion or your next article, champion your next whatever those things are. You absolutely, you never get too big, too much. Presidents have mentors. Presidents have board of trustees. So we may not say that they are their mentors, but they can either champion for something and help them to get access to things or money or resources that they need by their connected resources. So it works, it really, really works to our favor. So whoever that is listening, however you're listening, if you do not have mentorship, please connect with mentors. Get a mentor. Find out, what look for people in like spaces. They can be in like spaces that can help you think about things a little bit different, not better, but different, to help you as you journey to your next, whatever that next might be. Think about how mentorship works. It helps to build your network as well. Different mentors, especially for those of you who are early career, looking at growing your career. Mentorship matters. Our community matters. When we think about community, and for me in education, this is where our community grows. This is how our community grows, even if it's not with traditional or formal education. Education expands itself in the church. Let's think about the church. If we're talking about blood pressure, if we're talking about weight management, if we're talking about portion control, if we're talking about what's a healthy cholesterol versus not, if we simply have a scale and a blood pressure cuff at church and we're telling Sister Susie, hey, for the last 3 months, your blood pressure has been steadily increasing. Here's a provider that you can go to. If you don't have insurance, it costs maybe $25, or they can at least give you a prescription. That's education. That's community education. And so community initiatives. So when we think about how community plays a part, we've got to give back to the community. Oftentimes, we should give back to the community, shall I say. We should give back to the community. We have those access, we have those entry points. How do you give back to the community? Where do you start? Start at the local church. Start at, there are, if you don't go to church, that's fine. There are community meetings, there are town halls, that the local politicians, the commissioners have. Volunteer, find ways to connect with the community to help your community in spaces and areas to have things, to have resources, to get additional knowledge. A lot of times we often have the knowledge, we don't share. Share with the community. Help them to help better your community. There's so much knowledge a lot of times that we have that we don't give or that we don't share. I don't understand why. Sometimes it's a lack of time. Sometimes it's a lack of uh, knowledge or resource or thinking. But little that we have, share it. Find ways to share. Find ways to make sure people know about what you're doing, how you're doing, how you can be of help, and how they can be of help to you. A lot of times it can be bi-directional. It doesn't always have to be financial resources. It could be time. It could be volunteering. It could be making sure people have. There are a lot of what I love to see this last few months, especially with the shutdown. There were a lot of different community events giving away food, making sure people had food, making sure people had access, that people did not go hungry. and that people didn't feel like they had to go in the grocery stores and steal or take, because there were access to those food supplies, those food trucks, the food banks. They made it such a great noise about it that people could go and not feel um some kind of way that they didn't have, their food stamps, or they didn't have this, that, and the other. People weren't checking licenses. They were just saying, open up your trunk. We're putting it in there. They didn't care who you were. And they were just giving the food away. So this is how we stay engaged and we stay connected to our communities.
No, definitely. And I think it's so important. Like as you said, like they were just putting food in the trunk. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you needed it, you need it. And that's why it's really critical important that we vote. And
Yes.
not
Yes.
voting is you voting. And it's very important because then when certain scenarios happen like this, because
Mm-hmm.
decision makers are making decisions
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
going to affect you, you just don't know when that is going to
Yeah.
take place in effect. Um, so it was just great to see how
Mm-hmm.
everybody was coming together. And it was unfortunate seeing that, and it had to take that to see the community come together.
Yeah.
But it was really to me, it's beautiful when you sign up to volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
Mentorship is very important.
Mm-hmm.
I know I would not be where I am today without great mentors.
Yeah.
And finding a mentor, it could be someone where you're like, oh wow, I aspire to be that. Like
Absolutely.
I want to be, part of that group that they're in, or
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a career in that field. Or
Mm-hmm.
it could be somebody that is totally not in a field that you want to do, but they have such great knowledge and then they can redirect you in which way that you want to go. Um,
Yeah, I'll say this real quick. I know we're coming up to time, but uh, in mentorship, let me say this, mentorship doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's older.
mm,
It could be someone who's younger,
mm,
that are doing things. If you're learning, I'll give this as an example. If you're learning how to be, every people want to be, social influencers, and I'm good with that. I'm great with that. The best way that I've learned how to step up some of my game for social media, it takes a lot for social media. It takes a lot to be in, engaged, and active. It is a lot. But I'm learning from people who are not in my age, who are not doing some of the things that I'm doing, but they have a heart for people and telephones and videos. And they are mentoring me, showing me.
mm.
They are showing, they are coaching me to help me to say this is this, and I'm learning and take into heed what is happening. I love what you're doing. I was so happy to see you reach out, to see you do your homework, to see you advocate, to say I want this, this podcast, I want this. I'm loving seeing this. I'm inspired by you.
Now I
So thank
appreciate that. Now I'm inspired by you.
thank
For
you.
just the wonderful work that you're doing. And then like also too, what is the legacy that you hope to leave in educational spaces for students and institutions alike?
My legacy is simply impact, access, equity. Impact, access, equity. Access means that people have access to education no matter what their background is, no matter where they came from, no matter what their social economic status is, that they have access to some level of learning. Will everybody go to medical school? No. Will everybody get a degree in biology or health sciences? No. Will everyone get a bachelor's degree? No. But everyone at some level can have access to some type of learning. If it's training, if it's trade, everyone should have some level of access. Equity. That means for me, no matter your skin color, no matter your gender, no matter your social status, that you have access and that we are making an impact so that we are looking at generations behind us, that's before us, behind us, that we are reaching our hand to make sure that we are pulling people up, that we're giving people opportunity, that we're not afraid of where we are, but that we will. I don't want anybody on my team who's not as smart as I am. Meaning I want them to be smarter. I want them to work harder. I want them to have much more than I ever could have had. I can be the leader. I can be leader in title, but I want everybody on my team, they know I want them to really be the ones who make the decision. I want them to come up with the solutions. I surround myself with smart people, people like yourself, people who are game changers. That's how we make impact, not by being afraid of this person is going to, steal my joy, steal my thunder. You can't steal my thunder. You can't steal my joy. You can only elevate all of us. If you're better and if you're smarter and you're pushing, what is that going to do for me? That's going to elevate me. That's going to help me stay focused, keep my game up. And so those three areas are the legacy that I want to leave behind. I want to make sure people never forget where they come from. And so they are always pulling people. They're always influencing. They're always making sure that there is room at the table because they are creating that room by that impact, the impact that they're making.
No, definitely. And I think it's so important, like you said, staying around like-minded folks
Mhm.
that are in the field doing the work because that helps you stay sharp and you're inspired by that and to keep you going. Um,
Yes.
so also too, like what message do you want young women, especially those facing systematic barriers, to take from your leadership journey?
Ladies, I want you to take from the journey that everything that you set your mind to is possible. Everything that you set your mind to will not happen, but many things that you set your mind to, if you set your mind, if you work your plan, because you got to plan it out and work it, things will happen. Don't allow anybody to tell you no. There can be some not right now, not this opportunity, but no should never be in your vocabulary to the point where you completely stop, you give up, and you don't do it. I've shifted, I've changed, but I kept going. No, I'm not a Broadway singer, but I still love music. I sing when I want to, I sing when I can, but my purpose is yet being fulfilled. My purpose in the work that I wanted to do, is still being fulfilled. Do I have setbacks? Absolutely. But my setbacks are setups for my next come up, how I'm coming up, how I'm doing next, what I'm going to do. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to shift. It's okay. It's okay to shift. It's in some instances it's really really good. And when you shift and it doesn't work, okay, shift again. Change lanes. So keep going is what I'm saying. Don't stop. Don't give up on your hopes, on your dreams. Sometimes you got to, you got to go this way, right, left, north, south in order to get there. Sometimes you got to be willing to give up things to go there. But keep going, keep pressing, keep smiling, keep pressing. Don't let anyone, especially a male, dominant male in these roles, tell you otherwise. I could share that's another story. I could tell you how many times men have tried to stop me as a female. Mm-mm. Keep going, keep pressing, keep moving, keep leading.
Mm. No, I love that. And it's so important for us, especially for young women to know, be leaders, take
Hmm.
initiatives. If you see that there's a gap in the community, create it.
Yeah,
If you're like, oh, I love to, work with young mothers, create an initiative, do a diaper bank.
absolutely.
Anything that you see that there might be a gap, maybe you like working with veterans, see how you can volunteer at your local VA and get
That's right.
involved in that or create an initiative surrounding that. So it's just important for, I feel, for young women to be in those leadership spaces, just like you said, and don't stop.
Don't stop. Keep going. Keep going. You are the leader.
And then also too, how can listeners stay connected with your work, your book, or your upcoming initiatives?
Yeah, so follow me on LinkedIn at Angelita Howard. I'm always posting whatever's going on there. You can follow me, Facebook, Instagram, but LinkedIn, I'm always anything educational. I'm posting anything that I'm doing at work, any programs we have going on, anything where I'm speaking, I'm talking. That's always going to be on there. My Facebook and Instagram, you're going to see many of those things too, but I am a Christian unapologetically, and so I'm going to post there what I'm doing at church, how I'm impacting the community, what I'm doing in the community, how I'm serving in the community. So any of those outlets certainly come and you can stay connected there.
No, definitely. So, guys, please reach out to her. She's an amazing force in the community and higher education. And I just want to say, Dr. Howard, thank you so much for your visionary leadership, your service, and your lifelong mission to create access, equity, and transformational change in education. Your work reminds us that leadership is not just about authority, it's about compassion, impact, and courage. So, to our listeners, if today's conversation it inspired you, visit angelsprotection.org to explore our programs from mental health outreach to community-centered initiatives for young women aged 13 to 20. And always remember, silence protects systems, not people. So let's keep breaking it together.
Thank you. Thank you so much.